Hi, I'm Chris. I'm part of the Teaching and Learning Committee, and one of the things we wanted to do today is we're sharing some teaching tips, tricks, things that we've done in the past that are successful. And while there are a lot of online things to do, we also want to move away from that as we're becoming more in person. And so how do we go ahead and engage the students? How do we get them involved in the class? How do we get them to attend to the class, read, all these other things that happen that we need students to be doing while we're in person? So I'm going to share with you just something that I've done in the past, and I've done this for my larger classes. And by larger, I mean like 25 students or so, or 20 students. Classes where you can't, where you're not having that individualized one-on-one conversation or group discussion with each individual student, making sure each student is engaged in the class. But this is a great way of still interacting with students on a daily basis, even though it's a non-verbal form of communication. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what are called entrance tickets and exit tickets. And there's a number of different ways, a number of different tweaks of the way you can approach these. And so you might do these already, but I found these to be really effective in a number of different ways. So I'll talk through first the entrance ticket, then we'll talk about the exit ticket and some of the variations on it. But I'll try to keep this brief. Okay, so the idea with the entrance ticket, it serves a couple of different purposes. The idea is like, okay, so they will print these out. And so, or what I do is I usually print out and I give students like a stack of 10 of them because I can just cut them in half on a piece of paper, give students a stack of 10. So they always have some. So they can't just say, oh, I didn't have a printer. That sort of thing. So you can also make this a Google form, but it's really, really helpful to actually have them hand this to you because I use it as their mark of attendance. And so I don't stop, I don't take attendance, especially in the larger classes, 20, 25. I'm not, and with mass and being terrible with names and all of this and people moving around. And so this is the mark of attendance for students. And if they arrive late, I just always have a marker with me. And I just, even though they hand this in or something along those lines, I just put like a blue mark on it. And so I know which students came in on time, which students came in late. Okay, and I have the date for this as well. But the idea, okay, so they can answer one of these two things. The first question is, what is one specific idea from the reading or some other homework that they have that you found intriguing? Why is it intriguing to you? How does this idea relate to any other idea author that we've covered in class? This can be shorthand, it could be 2 sentences, but the idea is that they have to interact with the reading, something specific in the reading. And you could tweak how you want to do these. You could say, it can't be in the first 5, it can't be in the first 2 pages of the reading, but we really want them to put the idea into their own words. And then I ask them to cite the page number. So it's not just like, well, the title of the chapter was such and such. And so what you can do with these is you can, for the assessment on these, you can do a wide variety. You could say a check or check plus and check minus. And if however many checks they get over the course of the semester relates to their grade, you can do a 1, a 2, a 3. You can do some sort of other rubric. But I talked to the students about, okay, you have to have X number of checks in order to get an A in this part of the class. Okay, so that was the first part of the question. Or the other question, they could respond to this one too. What questions do you have based on the reading for today? Are there specific ideas that gave you trouble? Is there a question, a topic that we need to address in class? And so you could also say, okay, you need to do 5, you need to do 10 of the top ones and 10 of the bottom ones over the course of a semester or something along this, however you want to do it. But the key is to get them to hand this to you as they're walking into class. And I had a professor do this that I used to TA for, and actually all the TAs would collect it and we would rifle through them really quick and then kind of give him a stack of like, okay, here's 3 questions that came in that are really good questions or really good ideas, and let's talk about that. And he would focus on these 3 and sort of talk about like really incorporate those 3. Now, when you're taking these and you're having to rifle through them and you're having to kind of waiver, it becomes a little bit more challenging. But I've been able to, just from doing this for a while, is been able to kind of quickly read through them, bring a couple out. And the great thing about this is you can identify, okay, Jennifer, you wrote this on your discussion. You wrote this question, or you don't necessarily have to out them, but it's like, Jennifer, you made a really good point. and what you submitted. It's like, do you want to share a little bit more about that? So it's a way of getting you to get students that might not talk on their own in class to participate more. So these are the entrance tickets. So some of the benefit, it sort of combines this just-in-time teaching methodology with discussion prompts. With this, okay, it's being used as a ticket to get into the class. You can use it for attendance. You can see who's coming in late. You have a record of this. But then also the idea is that you take this, or you can take this, and you can just jot some notes down and hand it back to students the next day. So it's, or the next class period. So now you have like this kind of like ongoing little conversation and relationship building with students that you might not have if they're just walking into class, not saying anything, and walking out of class. So it's a nice way for, especially the students that aren't very talkative. You can have this sort of like this sidebar nonverbal communication conversation going between these discussion posts. They can also generate discussion ideas, especially if you're talking about more complicated ideas in philosophy and the humanities, or even in sciences. It's like, what are you not grasping after doing the homework or after reading the assignment? So let's talk about that. Okay, so that's the entrance ticket. Now, on the flip side, you could also do an exit ticket exercise. Okay. And so this is something that I hand to the students as they are walking into class, a half sheet of paper, as they're walking into class. And again, they put their name, put their date. And once I hit a certain time period of my class, so let's say like, there's usually a 5-minute grace period. I'll just put a little blue mark on these papers. And so if students come in, I will hand them the one with the blue mark. And so I know later on when I track attendance, I know that they've arrived late. I don't have to stop class. I just hand it to them. And so what these approach, these exit tickets, the idea is you're trying to say, okay, what's going on in their mind during the class? And they have to write something down to like, okay, what is one takeaway from this class session, something that sticks in your mind, something that surprised you, or an insight you may have. And so they have time over the course of the class period, whether it was enlightening during their discussion or something that someone else said, or if I'm presenting an idea, it's like, wow, okay, that's really interesting. Or if they can do the bottom one, like, what questions do you have moving forward? Is there something specific you would like to cover in the next class? And so at the end, they would turn these in. Again, you could do, if you so choose, a check minus or check plus system. And I always encourage students to, like, if they want, like, it's like take a picture of these, and so they have them in their notes, but also take them back, and I'll just write a little note that's like, hey, thanks for your insight, or especially with the bottom questions, like what questions you have moving forward. If they have a question that we're going to address later in the semester, like, hey, when we get to Freud, we start talking about Freud and Freud's approach to religion, it's like, bring this question up again. And so it really gives them like a sense of, okay, they are contributing, and they are participating and contributing to the arc of the class. Also, if there's an idea and a concept, again, you can tweak these exit ticket exercises if you so wish. Maybe some days you want maybe more content-based response, like, okay, summarize the idea that we talked about in class, just so you are sure that students are able to explain maybe a complicated idea you're talking about in the particular class, or a complicated event in history, or a complicated philosophical argument, or something in a psychology class or in history or law. Anything, you could tweak the questions and actually have them turn something in that's more content driven, as opposed to sort of like their reaction to it. But again, it creates this discussion. I mean, I've done this with students where they might not have, verbally, other than saying hi and things like, they might have just been sitting in the back of class, but this is a great way of interacting with them, making feel like they're participating in the class. And you can always say is like, Johnny, I don't know why all the names have to have a Y at the end, Susie, Johnny. So Johnny, it's like last class, you mentioned this insight. So do you mind saying a little bit more about that? And so as a way, again, to bringing people in, but having an ongoing conversation. But so some of the things that, these exit tickets, you can identify what stood out You can talk about it if you need to fix anything for the next time. It's like, oh my gosh, they really didn't get this concept. Okay, we need to go over that again. And also, they are completing these during class, so at least they're writing something down. I know some of my students aren't taking notes; they're just kind of looking at me, and as the discussion is going, so they're at least writing something down over the course of the class session. And then you could, if you so choose, you could make this a Google form and just put a QR code, or put a Google form or something, put a QR code at the front of the class and say, okay, as we're going through class, I want you to fill out this Google form if you want it more in electronic format. But I like the paper where they're handing you something as on their way out. And it also helps me learn names a little bit better when I'm handing them back and I'm getting them for the first time. And again, this comes with a date, and so it's a mark of attendance. But that's all I have. So these are effective ways, especially if you have larger classes, 20, 25, even if you get, like 28, 30 plus. So this is a great way of kind of still interacting with students on a daily basis. But if you have any questions on how these can be used, or if you have some good ideas on how you use them, let us know. So I'm Chris with the Teaching and Learning Committee. It's great talking with you. All the best.